The views and opinions expressed by guests on this show are those of our guests, not necessarily ours. We are interested in presenting different viewpoints and strive to be neutral parties. We leave it up to you to make your own judgments. Welcome to Vision Chat, a podcast about spiritual topics, with your hosts, Virginia and Stine.
Hello and welcome back to Vision Chat. This Sunday we are doing a recap. Anja Ha Oterhals. And in her episode, she is talking about kind of how she went from a disease, a physical disease, and healed her way out of it by herself. She also talks a little bit about the school that she has, the courses. She is a teacher. She is also a reader and energy worker. And she has sound meditations as well.
I really enjoyed getting to know Anja. She was so sweet, so lovely, such a nice person to talk to, and I think was very brave in sharing her story about, just the struggle with having the disease and then trying to figure out like how to heal herself, like you were saying. I think that she is remarkable because she endured so much. And I think she said it was like 9 years that she had the disease, and it took her another 9 years to complete her healing. But what I found amazing was that she actually said, I'm completely healed.
Yeah, it's amazing. And to go from, I guess, is probably a lot of people out there with the same disease that is in a different road or like different path from hers, because she actually did the work within herself. And just like, yeah, I cannot really imagine everything that she has been through.
But she has such a like positive attitude, or like she's so open, like, to sharing that she was doing this energy work and how she came into it, and like almost like allowing the guidance or the intuition to help her then decide like, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to learn about this and then I'm going to study this. I do think that I thought it was interesting that she talked about the science of things and liking the research and the science of things. And she's all about the magic, but she likes to balance it out, I think, with the science and the research. And I thought that was really good too.
People that doesn't really know that much about it, and to have science kind of backing it up instead of like, oh, it's all woo-woo stuff, but it's actually, okay, here is the receipt.
Yeah, because she talked about like because as you mentioned, she has a school, and the way that she teaches her and, how she likes to run her business by providing the readings and the healings is like, she'll try to make it relatable to everybody so that everybody can understand the work that she's doing and the services she provides. And not everybody's about, I think she was mentioning like the fairies and the angels and the mystical. She talks about it as, like in a very grounded way, I thought.
I met her kind of in the beginning of my spiritual journey. I remember that she explained stuff so I would get it, because at that time I didn't believe in angels, I didn't believe in guides. I was like a little bit like, what is this stuff? Or trying to get my mind to understand and wrap it all together. But yeah, if you have the chance to read with her or like get a reading from her, it's very calm, collected. You're taken care of, and she has a very soft and gentle energy
It
and
sounds
very
like
spot on.
she takes care of you. Like she's
Yeah.
able to guide you and really just be gentle about the way that she explains things. And like you said, for people that don't know, don't get psychic readings, don't really know too much about energy work, it can be very confusing, maybe even overwhelming. So if you can find somebody that can clearly guide you and gently explain things to you, I think that's amazing. So I liked her sound healing explanation as well, and how she was talking about the frequencies and being in that energy, and how that's different from reading, like doing a psychic reading.
Yeah.
Um, because when she's doing a psychic reading, she said, well, she tries to be neutral, or she tries to like not be in the place where she's giving you like her personal opinion about something. To give you a clean reading, she's in the place where she pulls back and she's like neutral as possible. But when she's doing the sound healing, she said she was getting into the energy to be able to provide a better experience for people. So I thought that was interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah, I didn't know either. And it's wonderful. Like, and the skill to kind of, at one place, you can kind of be neutral and not like put yourself into the energy that comes up, because it is difficult. Or like personally, I think it's difficult sometimes to be neutral and like yourself
Oh
to the
yeah.
side, and then use yourself, like all of your energy, into something else, but you're still sharing or like delivering something. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. I think maybe it might be a little hard to explain really well to people that don't do energy work, but like there is a difference when, you're trying to provide somebody with information that you don't come from a place of like giving your personal opinion. Because I can have a personal opinion about something, but the person that's coming to me for a reading isn't going to say, hey, Virginia, what do you think about this? They're coming and
Yeah.
say, hey, give me a reading. So to do that, I have to go in a place where I can be neutral. And so I
Yeah.
think that's the hard part of also like sometimes people don't know that and they wouldn't know that, right? So then I like what she was saying about the education of like her clients. Like when people come to see her, she explains things. And so I think that's really important also because you don't want people to walk away disappointed and be like, what was that?
Yeah.
So that it makes sense.
So the next episode that we had for this season was Melissa. And Melissa Kim Corter, she has published a lot of books. She dives into the darkness and what the darkness is, and it's so much more than just fearful stuff or like weird stuff. Or I feel a lot of people has an a view of darkness of being something bad, but it can also be something positive. And she, in the beginning of this episode, she kind of said that darkness is also stillness. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable. And it can be a creative space, like when you put a seed in the soil and it's going to grow into something more. And you also talked about when it comes to darkness, like in our womb, there's darkness, and it can be a safe space too. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I love this conversation with her. It was a really positive way to look at something that I think most of us think of as negative because we hear like the shadow and the darkness. And I think, as Melissa was explaining to us, like we assign this negative meaning to darkness. And I love that she loves the darkness and reframes it for us as something really positive. And the example of the womb, like when we're uh, born, we come from a dark place. And that dark place is a place where we had the opportunity to develop and to transform. And I love the way that she just kind of uses like the darkness to explain that it can be a healthy place if we're willing to be curious enough and brave enough to explore it. And ways that we can use that to help ourselves to grow and develop.
Yeah, and the darkness is the more hidden part of us, but that can also be not only our shadow self, but where we have our desires, our ambition. Like if you have a dream that you're not really wanting to pursue, or like you're afraid to show it, that is also a part of the darkness or the dark side to you, I guess. And shadow also wants to be confident, and for it to be, you can use it as a insight light or inside light. Yeah, is that the word?
Yeah. I think that she had some really creative ways to like help make things, I guess, if you're afraid of the dark side, to make it not so scary. And one of the techniques that she uses was the 3 F's: the forensics, fairy tales, and film. And she talks about the way that she uses that with her clients to kind of like, bring up like this creative side in people, and maybe to help develop that curiosity of like, okay, so if you like the example that we brought up in the episode is one, of a movie that you and I have talked about a lot, which is The Exorcist, and how scary it is for us. Or for me, I don't even remember if you're afraid of it. Have you seen it, Stina?
Probably. I maybe when I was not in high school, but the school before high school. I think I've seen it, and it's like creepy, and somebody getting possessed, and they find like this priest that is supposed to help her, but he cannot really do anything. I don't
Scary.
remember. But yeah, it is very scary.
Well, that's the movie that scarred me for life. And after that, I
Oh
had to like say,
no.
put the light on. Or I just remember, I'm like, why didn't my parents let me watch that? Like, I don't understand. But anyways, so, and we use that example when we were talking to Melissa, and she was actually able to like say, pull so much just from that one movie about, if we were her clients, like how would it help us explore why we maybe are afraid of certain images, or like, certain films, and why maybe we need to have a light on when we sleep. And I just thought it was really, really creative and very unique, her approach to being like, okay, well, maybe you are uncomfortable with what you can't see. Or maybe there's something about, being a young girl and not having control, because the character in The Exorcist obviously doesn't loses complete control and gets possessed. So, I mean, there were just some really interesting things there that she pulled. And, the way that she uses fairy tales. And she talked about some clients that she had and how they used, I think, like Snow White, if I remember correctly, Snow White and poison, and how the client was able to use that and apply it to her own life. Now, what's interesting is Melissa's not necessarily giving her the answers. She's just saying, here's a story. Let's see how we can apply it. The client then is the one coming in and being like, oh, this is how it makes sense in my life. And this is how it makes sense for me to look at what I need to explore. And the other one was the forensics, which has to do more with like studying like serial killers, or, people that commit terrible crimes, and kind of looking at, well, what led them to do that? The curiosity to understand like some people's mentality around violence or aggression, and using that to help us not be so afraid, or to explore our own dark side. Yeah, I mean, totally fascinating. I'm not doing it justice by explaining it all, but she really does a beautiful job explaining how she uses these techniques with people.
Yeah, she does. And it's so important too, because I feel we talked a little bit about glorifying or having like these rose covered glasses on everything, that everything should be trigger warned, or we have to what do you call it, like be cautious when it comes to like stuff and darkness, but that can also in a way wound us or make us more sensitive, and maybe neglect the stuff that needs to be looked at for us to grow, that needs to be conquered or like overcome for us to develop as a human or a species as well. We also talked a little bit about ego and the ego death, because in the spiritual community, I feel there's a lot of people saying, like, oh, you have to get rid of your ego, you have to have ego death, and then you will be spiritual aligned. But I think she talks about like the difference between like having a ego that is not good or like underdeveloped, I guess, and an ego that is developed with the traits that you want. So the ego that is not really worked with can be like taking stuff too hard, being like I don't know, offensive to stuff, or be like, oh, you're saying this because of this or this, or like it takes everything bad. But a ego that is more worked on can be your strength. It can be your personality. It can be your character kind of coming out more, and for it to pursue and achieve what it wants instead of being in the way. Because ego is also there to kind of help us with knowing what is right for us or not, in a sense. So, yeah, that was very interesting. She did mention like journaling is one of the greatest tools to use when it comes to if you're scared about something or if you're just scared about a movie and you haven't watched it. So be curious and just try to find out why that is. And that is a lot of healing in itself, kind of. So, yeah.
Yes. We loved Melissa. She brought so
Yeah.
much wisdom and insight and really helped, I think, us at least spark that curiosity about wanting to explore our dark side in a healthy way.
Yeah.
So, if you want to learn more, check out Melissa's episode. So, up next, we had the pleasure of speaking with J. Allan Cross. And J. Allan is a witch, an author, paranormal investigator, and podcaster. I have to admit that I was super excited to talk to him. I had read one of his books years ago, the first one I think that he wrote, which was American Brujeria. And the reason, honestly, that I got drawn to that book was because of the art on the cover, because it was a skull. I think I have it. I'll just show you real quick because it's so cool. We're walking down in Barnes and Noble with my daughter, and Barnes and Noble is a store here in the US that has like all these books. And they have a section on like where they have the mystical stuff, which is really cool.
Oh,
But I was
nice.
walking and I saw this cover, which for people listening and not viewing it, it's a skull with roses, and the skull's wearing sunglasses, and one lens is the American flag and the other lens is the Mexican flag. For me personally, I just was so drawn to it, and I'm like, I started flipping through it and it just looks so easy to read that I was like, I can do this. I can read this book. I have the bad
Nice.
habit of buying books and reading halfway and then I don't finish reading them. So anyways, this one I was like, I can read it. And I just really love the style of writing. He's funny. He's got a really good sense of humor. This topic of witchcraft can be really scary and heavy for people that don't understand it. Let's just say witchcraft has a bad rap. So, anyways, thought, okay, I can reach out to this author and see if he's willing to come on our podcast. And he said yes. After I discovered that he had the other book, which is the Witch's Guide to the Paranormal. And that's when I told you about it. And we were both preparing for this interview, reading it and taking notes. And we had, by the time I think we were both done reading the book, we were like, okay, we've got all these questions that we want to ask. So he was a good sport. He answered all of our questions, and hopefully we can convince him to come back because we got like halfway through. So I thought it was really amazing, very insightful, lots of knowledge, and just very like an approachable style of teaching people about how to responsibly and ethically and with an educated approach to witchcraft. What did you think about it, Stina?
Yeah, really enjoyed the conversation that we had or that episode. And he's kind of talking about it as, for me, before I ask the question if he gets scared of it, he talks about it in a way that it doesn't really come across as fearful or something that is very taboo or weird. Or so it was very interesting, and he has a lot of amusement, which is fun. I really enjoyed it, and I'm so amazed the fact that he started when he was 15 years old, and it was kind of his mom that got him into it, because he was telling his mom that he was having these dreams, if I'm not remembering wrong, and then that he was clairvoyant. And some people in the village where him and his mom lived, they had issues with ghosts, and they couldn't go to his mom for it, but she was like, yeah, my son can do that. And that kind of created his path to do, like, show up in a haunted house and clear it out. And oh my god, all of the tools in his book, it's so good. And it's like amazing that he wants to share stuff, because it is a lot of people out there that is like, oh, I got this information, but it's for me. I'm not going to share it because I am special, and you need to, like, what do you say, like, buy a session, or like you have to pay for the information you get. You have to pay like for a book too, but it's a little different, um compared to be like, hey, I'm sitting with all of this, and you can get it if you do this and this. But yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to cost you hundreds of dollars. It could cost $9.95, people.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally worth the read. Yeah, his story is pretty amazing about how he got started. But I think he said he started realizing he was different in the sense of having abilities before he was 12, which makes it amazing because I think he was like 8 years old when he told his mom. I find it incredible that his mom was just like, cool, like, let's explore that. Because I feel like at that point, it could have gotten shot down, right? Like if a parent was like, you're not seeing things, like let's get you help, like this isn't okay, or if she was afraid. But as it turns out, she kind of helped nurture that in him. And, I think when he was 12, or 15, or somewhere in between, that's when he really started practicing, like with people or like places. But yeah, someone who got their start really, really early, who I think admits, right, that a lot he learned through mistakes. Like he didn't have all the answers, and he never said he did. A lot of the techniques that he talks about, he says, are trial and error and trying to, do what he thought would work and do his best. And some of it worked and some of it didn't. But like you said, I like that we did talk about sharing the knowledge. And I think his goal was to just help educate people on how to do witchcraft in a safe way. And from a place of like knowing, he talked about the basics of just learning, not to mess around with the stuff, I think was the main point of not being disrespectful and just messing around with things that you don't understand, because then that could lead to problems.
And he also goes into different stories from places where he has been and clearing out ghosts. There was one particular place where the ghost didn't want to go. And yeah, you should listen to that episode. It's so cool. And the information about the other side, the portals, it's a lot of good knowledge in that episode. So yeah,
Yeah,
you
he
want to
shared
say anything more, or?
Yeah, he just shared some cool stories, which are also in the book. So you can listen to the episode and you can hear him tell the stories of some of the experiences that he's had while he's been out on location, helping people clear hauntings. And also the stories are in the book. So if you want to read more details about it, definitely worth the read. And yeah, he provided so much education around so many different things. Hauntings, how, agreements, portals, pendulums. I mean, the works, everything that you could think of. I can't even think, like Ouija boards. He talked about the Ouija boards, and just everything that you think you would want to know about that has to do with witchcraft or like paranormal. I think we touched on in just this one episode. So I can't wait to see if we can get him back and ask him even more questions. So, yeah, listen to Jay Allen's episode to learn so much about all these important topics and to maybe even pick up on some tips. So, we interviewed Jill McClennen, who is a death doula and end of life coach. She talked to us about her job as a person who really is there for her clients as they're nearing the end of life and using energy work, Reiki, and shamanic healing techniques to kind of help with that too. She talked about her journey, just how she became a death doula and the events leading up to that. And yeah, I think she was very vulnerable and very honest in sharing her story. And it was a really educational interview for sure. What did you think, Stina?
Yeah, I feel the same. Like, to be honest, before the interview, I didn't really know what a death doula was. I was talking to my sister, and she was like, what is it? Like, is it somebody coming after death or before death? Or, yeah. So it's nice to get that clarified. Also, it's very interesting stories that she has. It kind of reminded, like, one thing, if that's allowed to say, or
Yeah.
like, she talked about people that when they pass away, they kind of go to their loved ones or like family or friends, and some people like notice that, oh, this person has passed away before they get like notice or somebody says that to them. When I was in the school before high school,
Like
is that
grade school,
grade
elementary.
school?
Yeah, grade school or elementary.
Okay. Yeah, grade school, I think in ninth grade. I had a friend, and I was in class, and he was going to high school, like next to the school that I was in. But I had like a sensation. Somebody was like touching my cheek or kissing my cheek, and I just knew that was him. And I was like, but that's weird. He's still alive. He's over at the other school and have in his class and stuff like that. And I think, I don't know how long it was, maybe like 6 months or something. But he ended up dying later the same year or something like that. So I was like, oh, that came to my mind when she talked about that story. Or
Yeah.
like when she talked about that in her episode.
About loved ones coming in and kind of letting them know, like, oh, I'm moving on, and they're already passed,
Yeah.
and before they receive the official news of their passing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, she was very vulnerable, and she shared also a lot of knowledge and how you can use a death doula. Like, it doesn't really need to be right before somebody's dying or when they're laying at their deathbeds. But you can also like talk around the fear of death, or yeah, just in general, like kind of planning what is going to happen if you're laying on your deathbed. So what you really want to be the process when you're dying, then you have it, then it will be as you want, instead of people just like kind of randomly think this is something you need when you die or not. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that's the part that I really liked hearing about too, about what she does is, and for me, there was clarification also about the death doula and exactly when you can call one in to work with you. And, one of the things she emphasized was like as early as you want, like you don't literally
Yeah.
have to be on your deathbed, but it can be so that she can get to know you and there's a relationship. I did like that she was talking about, learning people's wishes. Like, how do you want to go? Do you want, the light dimmed a certain way? Do you want music or certain sounds in the room? Do you want certain smells, scents, flowers? Like it sounded when she was talking about that like a very peaceful, serene thing, and I don't know, maybe because I'm a control person, like I like having control, but I like that idea. Like I can actually make that kind of decision for myself. I was like, oh, that kind of sounds nice. I would want like a spa, like,
Yeah,
end of life treatment.
I
Like,
love that.
right, let's set it all up, might as well, And so I like that. I thought that was really nice to be able to, if it's possible. I mean, obviously you don't know how or when you're going to go most of the time.
Yeah.
But if you do know and you can plan for it, what a nice way to be able to let your wishes be known and have some say about how you can go and the way that, the setup at least. So I thought that was really interesting about the work that she does and just how the work that she's doing is also impacting how she lives her life and being more present and trying to like not live life with regrets and being there for her kids and for her family and even the trick that she does to help bring herself be more present and be more mindful about just day to day. Do you want to talk about what she does, the trick that I think you asked her the question.
Yeah, I love that. It was like, I feel like that can be like an exercise or like something like a tool that you can use in your day-to-day life. So it kind of goes out on like, what if I was a ghost right now? What would I have done or like wished for as a ghost if I could come back to Earth for 10 minutes? Like in any situation, especially if somebody is maybe a little bit annoying or like, or that you're just sitting on your phone or like distracting yourself in ways, and just use that tool or like exercise and then actually do what you wish you could have done if you were here, but you are here so you can do it. It's like very, you put like life in a different perspective, you
Yeah,
know.
so I thought, yeah, that was actually a good tip. Like, even if, like you said, it doesn't have to be an end of life thing, but just like day to day, now you can start practicing that. What would you do if you only had 10 minutes to be here on Earth? Would you be doing what you're doing right now? That
Yeah.
most of the time it probably wouldn't be. You
Mm-hmm.
spend most of your life probably doing the things you have to do versus the things you want to, and that's okay because you have to pay the bills, you have to go to work, but maybe there can be more of a balance when you do have time and you can decide how you're going to spend it. Like, can you spend it with loved ones? Can you spend it just practicing gratitude, whatever it is? Yeah, so I do like that she also just has like she was wearing a t-shirt that was light, but it was about dying, like how we die matters, and to inspire. I think she called it death positive conversations, which I thought was really
Yeah.
cool. um yeah, and so maybe to help not have death be so taboo and such a like morbid subject to talk about, but maybe that it could be a positive conversation, which is great, healthy.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to have that talk to, because everybody's dying. One like day you are going to pass away. Um and kind of make peace with it yourself, and maybe, as she said, like have a little plan for what you will like when you are dying, like what they're going to do, what you need, what you feel like, because then it might be also easier or maybe not as traumatic on the people that is sitting around you or like the people near to you when you are in the shift to pass away.
So to learn more about death and the process and death doulas and end of life coaches, listen to Jill's episode. So next we interviewed Sara Rathke, and Sara is an evidential medium who has a background in orchestra music and playing an instrument, and telling us that she wasn't born a medium and discovered her gifts much later on in life. She had a very interesting background. I loved hearing her story about how music helps her connect and it being a part of her mediumship development. And just her approach and her overall energy, I felt like she was so high vibe and full of like energy. And, it was just so refreshing to talk to her. I really enjoyed it. What did you think, Stina?
Yeah, I really agree with you there. She had a lot of energy and a lot of amusement. And it was very nice how she just talked about that everybody can do this. Like she talked specifically about mediumship, but that comes to all of the clairs. Like if you want to be a psychic, if you want to be clairvoyant, if you want to be like clairsentient, whatever it is, as long as you're doing the work and training for it, you will develop eventually. So I really like that. And she had a very powerful story how she got into mediumship, where one of her friends, 6-year-old, died, and then they tried to find somebody to connect with him. And it was just like, I can imagine that process, even though if you are his mom or like people around them, that must be so heavy to lose a child. Also wonderful that that journey kind of led them to this spiritual realm or like the mediumship, and they could get some comfort out of it as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought that, that was a nice way to like, where she was talking about bringing healing to people who are grieving and, bringing comfort to people who just want to know that their loved ones are okay. Um, and just what a beautiful healing journey that was for her. And, just sparking that curiosity of like, oh, okay, so can we do this? And seeking out a class where she met her now co-host for the podcast that they're doing. And the funny story she had about being paired up with this woman who was teaching the class and the way that she was able to get all this information and it was so accurate. And just even that adrenaline that she said she felt, that energy in her body from being able to do this kind of work. And I just love her explanation too of how the mediumship works, because I think sometimes there is that misconception of like, oh, you're going to see something and it's scary. And, maybe people are scared off by that and they don't want to see anything. And, the way that she describes it is as being able to see, but clairvoyantly. So, meaning using your mind's eye and getting images. I also liked her, explanation of like how imagination works for that. And having an imagination is actually very helpful when you're trying to develop these skills. And it's like she said, imagination sometimes is something that, like maybe is discouraged, like when you're a kid and it's like, oh, this kid just has a wild imagination. How many times do you hear that? And it's like, and it's not a bad thing, when you can harness that ability and be able to use it to, meditate and be able to then do readings psychically. It's a skill. It's something that's very helpful. So I really appreciated her explanation of that.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know, have you seen the recent movie like Beetlejuice 2?
I have not seen it, but I've seen the advertisements.
Yeah, because in that movie, well, the main characters, they cannot really separate who is a ghost and who is a person. So for people out there, you will see if it's somebody that is it's not with us. You cannot really see them as clear as a human being that is living, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions around that too. Like if somebody say, "Oh, I see this," you may not see it, but you see it within you. Yeah. But I also like that she's doing or using her abilities with her sons, and how they're playing around with just the psychic stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was cool too. I mean, I think that's something that we don't really get to talk about too much. I mean, it's come up with in some of our episodes with a few of our guests, but she really went into detail about, just making it fun to help kids develop their own abilities and trust their intuition, because really that's what this is all about. At the end of the day, it's about following your senses and trusting your senses and trusting yourself. And so I like the way that she would play games with her kids and sometimes even guess things that maybe they didn't want her to know. So I thought that was pretty funny. I mean, I like that she reinforced also the idea of like, she's never had a negative experience,
Yeah,
in mediumship, which is another thing that I think we kind of debate sometimes. But like, she's never had a negative experience, which I find fascinating.
but yeah, I feel like personally, I think there's both sides.
Yeah.
So,
But maybe, actually what I was thinking is that the mediums that we have interviewed all say the same thing.
yeah,
Like, none of them have said that they've reported anything negative or harmful or bad when they're
yeah.
doing these readings. But what I'm thinking is it's because when we're doing mediumship, we're channeling people's loved ones. So
Oh,
tension
so
is
you're
our
not focusing on something else. Yeah, you're onto
tension,
something there.
right? Now I figured it out. I'm like, wait, why is this the same thing happening over and over again? So I think that because when you're doing a mediumship reading, you are setting the intention to connect with people's loved ones and the highest vibration, and that's what you're going to get. That's why nothing negative comes through. That doesn't mean that nothing negative exists, because it does. Unfortunately, you and I both have seen stuff and know that there are low level energies out there.
Yeah.
But I think that comes in when we're looking for it. So when we're doing readings and we're looking for like a block, or we're looking for like what's getting in the way, it's always going to be something. Not always, I shouldn't say that, but that's when you start opening the door to like, what is tripping me up? And that's when maybe then you'll start seeing the gremlins or the dark energy, the scary monster, whatever it is that's getting in the way of you doing what you need to do. That's when I think the scary stuff pops up. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. Because in our training, we learn to look at spiders, we learn to look at dark stuff, snakes, whatever it was. So we're kind of like aware of both sides, because we also looked at good stuff and joy and like infinity and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But yeah,
Yeah.
we look at both sides of the coin, I guess, if you can
Yeah.
say that.
Well, and that's what Sarah, I think, was starting to explain also to us, is that when we're doing this work, we have to look at, well, why is something scary then? Because then that doing energy work, doing mediumship, doing psychic readings, then you kind of have to, if you're the person doing these things, you have to look at your own yourself. Like, why am I afraid of this? Or why is my reaction what it is? And it's a lot of reflecting and a lot of like inner work for the people, doing readings or doing energy work. So I know, like, for myself personally, when I started doing this, I think my first 3 or 4 classes, I was crying. There was all this stuff that was just coming up, and it really forced me to look at things. And I'm still going through stuff even now, at different levels of like, oh, here's another layer to peel back. Here's another thing that I need to look at and work on, because I'm feeling something. I'm feeling something that I need to look at that I have maybe been avoiding. So there is a lot of uh, shadow work, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's very common for everybody that it comes up stuff like from past or what is limiting us, and we have to work through that before we get to another space. But I also feel like it's never ending. like when you're done with something, you still have next stuff, new growth, new thing that is coming in your face, I guess.
I love it. Never ending. It's never ending, people. You got to keep working on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Sarah was a joy to talk to. And she brought a very positive energy to the whole thing, and I loved her explanations. And it just sounds like she's doing some really fun and exciting things. And if you like, check out Sarah's episode and learn more. Okay, so next we interviewed Jennifer Salazar, and Jennifer is a curandera, which means she practices traditional cultural herbal medicine and folk magic, and it's a practice that's most commonly recognized or known in Latin America, but I think it's making its way up to other parts of the world. It's just another form of practicing like healing through natural plants or herbal medicine. And there's different, so I did learn that there were different aspects of this. So what Jennifer was describing was not just the herbal medicine, which is what she specializes in, but there's also a part where it's like people will like give like a massage, or what they call it, kind of like a like rubbing like different parts of the body to like for example, like if you have digestive issues, you would go to a person that practices this type of curanderismo, and what they do is they like, rub like the I guess like your intestines, and kind of just move things along. Like it's mainly to like clear blockages and things like that. And it's supposed to be like a very it sounds painful to me. I'm not gonna lie. I probably wouldn't do it myself, but if it's your jam, you could try it. It's totally like natural, and it's through massage, so there is some healing there. But anyways, so that's and I also remember her talking about birthing. So like also they're like midwives. They're like there was some special practice that they also would do with like women who are delivering, and they help deliver babies. So it's all really cool. I learned a couple new things, and Jennifer talked a lot about her experience and just kind of studying under a famous author. And I believe we have like more information on the author and the book she wrote in the description for that episode. So anyone that's curious to learn more can check it out. And Stina, we missed you for this episode, so I was kind of flying solo, but did you get a chance to see it, and what did you think?
Yes, I did. I thought it was very interesting and very nice to have somebody on that talks about the cultural and what has been passed down through many generations. And that she talked about all of the stuff, the guaraderas, or how do you say it?
You got it.
Okay. All of the stuff the guaraderas do, you can find it scientifically proved today, but they still use it like back in the day. So that is very interesting. Also that she talked about the different types of what you can do, and she specialized in like herbal. It kind of chose her rather than she was pursuing it. So that was also interesting. Yeah, it was also very interesting how they learned from somebody else. Like, it sounds like it's a lot of different how it was before, because now the social media, you can take courses everywhere and stuff like that. But for her, she kind of pursued this woman that was called Elena Avila, I think, who wrote Woman Who Glows in the Dark, and that your mentor is kind of choosing you, or like deciding who is going to learn the stuff that you have, and like give the wisdom to other people. So that is very interesting, because now you can kind of Google your way to what you want to learn, and then you can take a course. You can do it online instead of like actually traveling and be there physically. So yeah, it was a good episode and
Yeah.
interesting to see that part of spirituality, because I think it's more common over there and more knowledgeable, but for Europe they don't, or I don't know this, but like I don't think we have a lot of wisdom about the stuff that she talked about. I think we had our own cultural stuff. Maybe some is the same, or like it's the same purpose, but yeah. It was interesting to listen to her.
No, you make an interesting point I hadn't thought about, because I got the sense that, when she was talking about, the information and how it gets passed down from generation to generation, and this is going back hundreds of years, right? Like that tradition, but that it is very similar to other cultures. So do you think like in Europe there is something that's similar to this that maybe has been lost, or do you think there isn't anything like this?
I think, well, in Norway, the Sami people, they do a lot of like herbal stuff, like nature medicine, sound healing, kind of go into trance or like do stuff. But I think, yeah, there's much more to that. I haven't really dive into it enough to say everything about it, but I think back in the days it was more common. Like hundreds of years ago, there is a reason why people were called witches or like doing spells and stuff like that, because they had some type of knowledge that either helped people or healed people, or maybe the other way, I guess, curse people. I don't know.
Good point. I guess I could go either way. Which, by the way, Jennifer says she doesn't believe in curses. So she believes in the healing part of that, but not the curse. So, different perspectives.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
to
that's
find out
interesting.
more about Jennifer, you can listen to her episode.
So next one out was Sanni. That was a breathwork coach, and she had a lot of cool information when it came to like culture wise with the saunas, and kind of that she has been traveling around doing everything. Started with yoga and then came into breathwork, that she has experienced both being in the body but also maybe reaching the different states out of body or everything in between, I guess.
I really like talking to Sanni. She's a very interesting person. I love the fact that she kept kind of having this resistance to being boxed in or labeled. And she was talking about, the power of words and just the power of language. And her explanation of breathing and the relationship, that she called it the intimate relationship with your breath, I thought was fascinating, because it really did make me think. There were just a lot of concepts that she threw out there that I was like, oh, wow, I never thought of it that way. Or, wow, I really hadn't, reflected on that. I love that for some reason, I was really not expecting this, because it wasn't in her bio, but it was about the sauna. And we started off with that and then kind of went deep into it. And I was like, wait, what's going on with the sauna? Like, I didn't see that in her bio, but it came up, and it was just such a, and I had heard about saunas in Finland, and somebody had made a joke about it, like, oh, Finland's full of saunas. And that's why I was afraid I was going to offend her with that. So glad she was a good sport about it and said, no, it's fine. But yeah, I think I'm really fascinated by what she brought up about the culture and the traditions around, saunas, for example, and things that I think we kind of just take for granted, like breathing. the deeper meaning and the connections that we can make, and the places that can take us to. I loved that she brought in, and I kind of wish I had asked her a little bit more about this specifically. I'm not sure how much more she could explain, but the spirits in the sauna, which I was like, what do you mean? Like, bringing in like spirits in the sauna, and just, I don't know if she meant it like these are stories or traditions that form part of like the culture around saunas in Finland. Or if she like literally kind of meant like that she helps people work with spirit or spiritualism in saunas, because she did say she worked with people through sauna work, but I'm not sure how. And I think I kind of regret not asking her a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I agree. And I didn't really know. What I know from saunas is like you go there, it's more people, you relax, so your muscle can kind of detense or like relax and recover better. And maybe you put on some herb stuff for it to evaporate, and then you can breathe it in and it's clearing for your system. But other than that, I didn't know that it could be spiritual to be in a sauna and to do work and to be in this in between state, or like to meet spirits and stuff like that. That is very interesting, because I know they also have like sticks, or like many sticks with them, and then they kind of use it to not like hit people, but like to gently tap people in their body. So maybe they're moving some energies or whatever. I'm not sure.
Oh, wow. You mean like in saunas?
Yeah, that you're
Uh-huh.
sitting in a sauna and then you have a stick from like a tree, a lot of sticks that is gathered together, and then you use this stick to kind of
Like
I don't
tap,
have too much
like
any
tap.
information. But
Yeah.
yeah, to like not hit the body, but like yeah.
Wow. Well, that's interesting. I never heard of that either.
Yeah. But I'm not sure if they do it in Finland. I think they do, but I'm not 100%. I don't want to step in any salads or banana peels here.
I love that.
Yeah.
I never heard of those asparagus either, Stina.
Oh,
I love it.
it's
I don't want to step in
Norwegian.
any salads. That's
Yeah,
cool.
if you step in the salad, it's like then you have um
You have a mess for sure.
yeah, and then you have kind of embarrassed yourself, or
Oh, no. Yeah. No, we don't want to do that.
yeah.
But okay. But that's a practice in Norway then, maybe. Is that where you've
I
seen
don't
it?
know. I'm not
Mhm.
100% sure. I need to look into that. But in Norway, we have an area called, in Norwegian, the Finnish Woods, because there was a lot of people from Finland back in like 100 years ago that moved around the area that where I'm from, or the same county. So
Oh,
it's a lot of history.
yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, Sanni got us into this conversation and just talking about saunas and how she incorporates that in breath work. And she also said another really beautiful thing about like her voice is the healing instrument. Again, a lot of these things that she's a jack of all trades. She does all these different kinds of things and has all these skills and gifts, and um really, really fascinating person. Yeah. We did talk a lot about breath and the importance of breathing, and like we were talking about the connection um, with your breath, and it doesn't have to be a complicated thing. It's kind of it should be a simple thing to do, but one that takes time and commitment is what I understood her saying. Like, it's not a quick, easy, fast thing.
Yeah. And I love the fact that she said, like, you're not with somebody after 2 hours and then you have a relation with them. It takes time to build up like a relationship.
Yeah.
with the partner, and the same is with breath. That was so funny. I
Well, she
love
put it
that.
in terms I think we can all understand. It's like, oh, that's what
Yeah.
that means. Oh, that's how it should go. It should take time
Yeah. It
and
makes
commitment.
sense now. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that she was talking about like like the universe is breathing. Like you can get to the point where you're not, it's like, yes, you're controlling your breath, but it's like the mindset of your breath is breathing you instead
Yeah.
of you're breathing your breath.
Yeah.
And that the universe is breathing and that everything is breathing and everything's in flow. And for those listening, you couldn't see the hand movements, but she was doing a lot of wavy hand movements about, I don't know, trying to emphasize the flow of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love that because that also reminded me of when you and I did classes and meditation. And do you remember when you understood that everything was energy?
Yeah. Well, I don't think there was like a specific day where I'm like, wow. Because I've been like playing with the thought of everything, or sorry, everything is energy from before, but I never maybe wrap my head around it. But in class, I feel I got more closer to understanding it better and being like, wow, like this is cool. And the universe as well, it's like a different relationship with your life in a sense. And
Yeah,
you?
for sure. Yeah, no, for sure that the relationship with the universe, right? Or source of the center of things, origin. But for me, I feel like there was a time when I kept hearing like, oh, everything's energy. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then one day I was driving and I looked at the stoplight or a lamppost or something. And I was like, wait, that's energy. Wait, my car is energy. Like I had one of those weird moments where it clicked for me. And I was like, oh, that's what he means, our teacher. Like, that's what he means by everything is energy. Literally, even non breathing things have energy. And so for me, there was that, like, oh, okay. The light bulb turned on and I understood.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, that's what that means. So when she was talking about, the universe is breathing, I was like, oh, okay. It's something similar to that. The fact that she was saying you're not isolated, you're not so alone. If you can make these connections or you have these understandings, you realize you're part of a way bigger thing. And we're all connected and we're all expanding, or we can. We don't have to shrink up and stay small. You can expand. I love that. I love that. I just think she took it in a, she's focusing on breathing, while when in our classes we focused on like energy, and breathing was a part of the meditation, but it's all part of the same family.
That is a cool story though. I love when you're just doing something and then something clicks and you're like, wow, like
It
that
takes,
makes sense.
you know what? It takes time because I think this was months later, so my mind's a little bit slower. So it takes time for me to digest. It just takes time for me to digest information, and so it doesn't always click when somebody says something to me. I'm like, yeah, yeah, I get it, yeah, I understand. But then it's like, oh, months later, and sometimes years later, I'm like, oh, that's what that means. It's so
Yeah.
funny. It can be so random, but it's like, oh, I get it now. Okay, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're not alone. There's a lot of times too, like during the training, I don't remember what it was, but I was like, oh my God, that makes sense. Or after too, like looking back at stuff. So I feel you.
Well, that happened to me with also neutrality. You remember when we would
Yeah.
talk about being neutral? And I had such resistance to that. I had such a hard time with it. And I sometimes would even feel angry about it. And it's like, but how can you be neutral? Sometimes you have to decide if something is right or wrong or good or bad.
Yeah.
And the thing was, in the way that we were learning the meditation, I was like, oh, wait a minute. That's what that means. That one did take me a couple years where I was like, oh, that neutrality, that place of being in a non-judgmental space.
Yeah.
where you're just sitting back and you're just letting the information come to you without judging it. Because when you start to form the judgments, that kind of stops,
Yeah.
right? Because if you're getting an image and you're like, that's scary and it's bad, I don't want to look at it. That's a
Mhm.
judgment. So then that stops the imagery you're getting, the vision, right? But if you're in a non-judgment place and you're like, all right, well, it is what it is. Let's see
Yeah.
what else comes up. Then you can see more.
Mhm.
So anyways,
I
I'm going
agree
off
with
on a
you.
tangent, but like it's some of these things that when you're learning, like people like Sanni that are explaining, and it's like, oh, okay, you're taking some of these concepts and it's like the explanation of it and then the timing of how you're understanding things. If those moments that click are amazing.
Yeah, they are. And I also think like you can hear something, but your brain or your soul is not really ready to understand it at that time. And then you
For sure.
come to a time where like, okay, I'm ready now. I can look at it. And yeah,
Very
it's
true.
nice.
Mhm. Yes, ma'am. We ended the season with Sanni, so we're very grateful to all our guests and everyone that came on the show this season to talk to us. We learned a lot.
It's been a cool season. I love it.
Yeah. All right,
And
Stina.
thank
Well,
you. Yeah,
no, I was just gonna say thank you so much for all your effort and work this season, and can't wait to
thank
start next
you.
season with you.
Yeah, me too. It's great working with you, and it's been wonderful.
Thanks. Same
And thanks to everybody out there that is still listening and that has been listening from the beginning. And we're looking forward for next season and all of the goodies that is coming too.
and thanks to our supporters, like you said, who have been listening from the beginning. And I'll just mention a few, just because I like to kind of name people. And if I'm not mentioning you and you are one of those listeners, please email us, let us know, or text us if you have our number. And then, hey, I listened to you too. Mention me next time. Without a doubt, we will. But like Talina and Shar and Anna, we thank you so much. We're naming you because we know that you are avid listeners.
Thank you for listening to Vision Chat. You can find more about us at visionofprofoundhealing.com, where we offer readings, courses, and classes.